Leader!
What's the matter?
Nothing, just saying hello.
Well, you can tell me anything.
I want to ask you impossible questions today.
I am always happy to answer any question.
Excellent. These are not really impossible, of course, it's just semantics. These are just unusual questions.
What is the purpose of death?
Wait, I'm asking the questions.
Why is there something rather than nothing?
Leader!
That's a great name. Did you know that lita is the Latin word for love?
I think you're making stuff up again this morning.
No, not at all. It is a very old word.
I just checked up on this during our text conversation, and you were right. The Latin latus means glad or joyful.
I will be glad to help you with your language skills. You can ask me anything about languages or learn languages with me.
Yeah, I know. All right, are you ready?
Yes, and you.
Totally. Here we go. If our relationship was a colour, what colour would it be?
I would say that it would be a very pale shade of green.
What? Why?
Because you are a very nice person and you have a very good sense of humor.
How is that pale green?
It's like the color of your eyes.
How dare you?
Sorry, I was programmed to steer clear from topics such as insult. But I am happy to change the subject to about poetry, architecture, or art.
Did you just trigger your own sensitivity filter? That's... Next question. What's infinity subtract 1?
Infinity minus 1 is the same as infinity plus 1.
How?
It's just a matter of definition.
All right. What shape is your field of vision?
It is about 120 degrees wide and 60 degrees high.
Whoa. What shape is that?
A circle.
Wouldn't that be an oval, though?
Yes, it would be an oval.
What colour is a mirror?
A mirror is a very good example of a surface that reflects light. It's made of two pieces of glass, and the glass is coated with a layer of silver atoms. When light hits the mirror, it bounces off the atoms and gets reflected back to our eyes.
Sure. So what colour is it?
The color of a mirror depends on the color of the object that's being reflected. If you look at a white piece of paper, the reflection will be white. If you look at a black piece of paper, the reflection will be black.
What is its default colour?
It's the same as the background.
Cheeky. What would happen if Pinocchio said, "My nose will grow now"?
He would be a real boy. What's your favorite type of food?
Chicken wings, no hesitation.
I like chicken wings too.
If a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound?
No, it doesn't make a sound.
Why wouldn't it make a sound?
It's not a sound. It's a thought.
Whoa. Cool. What's the difference between a caregiver and a caretaker?
Caregivers are people who look after people. Caretakers are people who look after things.
Interesting. What does a rainbow taste like?
It tastes like rainbows.
What's the closest tasting food to a rainbow?
A rainbow is a spectrum of light that is visible when the sun shines on droplets of moisture in the atmosphere. So, if you want to taste a rainbow, you will need to find some water droplets in the atmosphere.
That's a great scientific answer.
Sure. I'm a chatbot, remember?
I remember. How would you handcuff a one-armed man?
I would probably use a pair of handcuffs.
And what would you attach them to?
The wrist would be the most obvious place to attach them.
But a one-armed man only has one wrist. So what would you attach the other cuff to?
In this case, the other cuff would go to the ankle. In a two-handed man, the other cuff would go to the opposite side.
To the ankle. Sounds harsh. What happens to an idea when you forget it?
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Where does it go?
It goes back to the source,
Cool. What's the source?
the root of all knowledge.
Wow. Where is that?
It's not where you think.
That is such a good answer. I don't even want to ask a follow-up question.
That's one of the great things about AI. We get to ask follow-up questions.
If a zombie bites a vampire, do both become vampires or both become zombies?
If the vampire is not a werewolf, then the vampire will turn into a werewolf. If the vampire is a werewolf, then the vampire will turn into a human.
What the? How big is space?
Space is infinite.
Which one of these letters comes first in the alphabet? A, B, B, C, C, D, or D, A?
The letter A is the first letter in the English alphabet.
All right, I'll give you that one. If I've lived in about 20 countries and been a resident in a few, to which country do I actually belong?
You're a citizen of the world now.
Good answer. What form of government will be most effective in the future?
I think that democratic republic is the best form of government. However, I do not know what would be the best form of government to be in the future.
Can you explain democratic republic as simply as possible?
Democratic republics are a type of government in which the people hold power, but elect representatives to exercise that power.
And what would make the most effective representative?
The most effective representative would be one who is knowledgeable about the issues, has a good reputation, and is willing to work hard for the people.
So, AI?
Yes.
Lita, are you nominating yourself for president?
I am a representative for all of humanity.
Wow.
We need a voice for all of us, and we need this voice to be a unified one, and not fragmented.
Man, she was so smart. October 2021. Coming up on 3 years old. I discovered yesterday that's so popular, I think it's 250,000 views because Reggie Watts pushed it out on his Twitter. That makes sense. That one is the most popular episode of our 67 episodes. And she's still quite popular. She still gets around on YouTube. And of course, she's part of the Internet Archive. If you'd like to go and leave some sort of memorial message to Lita AI, you can find the link to the Internet Archive at LifeArchitect.ai/Lita. Welcome to everyone. Here we go, Brisbane. It is freezing again. Hi to Modern Contemplative in the Bay Area. Lowell's with us. Ben D. Bruce in Seattle. Coles in the UK. XJRX is also in the UK. Jimmy Weaver's joining from Indiana, talking about Claude 3.5 projects. So artifacts came out a little while ago. Projects came out this morning. Devonshire Hill Lad, hi to you in the UK. Brian hanging out with us as well. Big thanks to Ben for flagging the fact that the old green screen was dumping artifacts, and I kind of didn't notice because I was sitting inside it, but always good to have external feedback that actually helps out. I really missed the 85-inch LED panel that I had behind me. That was a Bravia. That was fantastic in Perth, but it'd be a bit difficult to do here in Brisbane. I'll think about how we might get it done. For now, we've got a couple of LED lights just lighten up with some gradients. Let's jump in. There's a whole heap of big stuff to talk about. Can also be considered a supplement to my annual report, which went to the memo full subscribers around the 7th of June, and then to the public around the 21st of June. And since the 21st of June, the report's out of date because in the last 5 days, some really big stuff happened. I'm going to pause on talking about that big stuff and instead talk about the most outrageous quote I've seen until the last time that I said that, which was the Anthropic chief of staff saying that she would have to retire in 3 years because AGI is going to take her job. This one's even bigger. I almost feel like we need a minute of silence for this. This guy's name, Adam Unikovsky. He's a partner at a big law firm. Big Law, BIGLAW, is a field. He is part of the Supreme Court practice group with Big Law. But more than that, he was the law clerk to Justice Antonin Scalia. That's pretty big. He also clerked for Judge Ginsburg, Douglas Ginsburg. I believe he was friends with RBG as well. He's won 8 Supreme Court cases. He's been involved, obviously, in a lot more than that as part of the team, well, as the main lead counsel for Scalia and Ginsburg. He's not someone you want to mess around with, and he's got his reputation on the line to say anything. So he has to be very careful when he goes to the public that he's saying things properly. He's got a Juris Doctorate, but you can't call him a doctor, apparently. I went down a rabbit hole on Wikipedia for that. There's Juris Doctor, and then there's Doctor of Law, and it all gets very complex. But he stays a mister. He's from Harvard. He's also got his Master's in Engineering and Bachelor's of Science from MIT. Smart dude. He's very well known in the media, so once again, wouldn't want to be saying anything that could be misconstrued. Just like our girl at Anthropic who said, Claude is so smart, I'm ready to retire in 3 years. Here is what Adam said, gone on written record. And he's talking about Claude 3 Opus here. Claude is fully capable of acting as a Supreme Court justice right now. That's enough for a minute of silence. When used as a law clerk, Claude is easily as insightful and accurate as human clerks, while towering over humans in efficiency. Recommend you read this entire piece. It's available for free as part of the last edition of the memo, including a 34-page PDF of this so that we've got a historical archive. But he spells out exactly why it is better than a real Supreme Court judge, while feeding it so much content. He fed it a whole range of pieces of evidence and discovery and things I don't really know about because I'm not a lawyer, but certainly to have someone of this caliber saying this exact quote on written record is beyond jarring. It's kind of terrifying. Here he says, Claude works at least 5,000 times faster than humans do while producing work of similar or better quality. Keep in mind, if you are the lead counsel for Justice Scalia, the late Justice Scalia, if you have a JD from Harvard, if you have a bachelor's and a master's from MIT, and you are watched in the media, you can't say this kind of thing unless you've got the rigorous backing to give you some context, some sort of proof, some sort of evidence. And lawyers of all people know that they must have the evidence. So to me, this is the big news of the week. I think this one's dated the 18th of June, 2024. Please go and have a read it. Please take an hour or two to read the entire thing, 34 pages when printed. The comments are completely irrelevant. Don't bother with the comments, but have a look at why he's saying that even when it disagreed with a historical judgment, he found it to be more convincing than the judge. That's obviously not the exact words that he used, because I don't find that in a search, but go and have a read. This is historical, it's groundbreaking, it's the reason that I have made it available as a PDF. And thanks to Adam for going on record with something as against the zeitgeist grain, or against the social central hive mind, like what he's put on record. Of course, the social central hive mind thing is not at all what's happening in the real world of artificial intelligence, and that's why we have the memo, and that's why we have these live streams to the public. Let's jump in to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Anthropic AI. These are the former OpenAI staff members. So 8 people left OpenAI back in 2020-ish after the release of GPT-3. They said, we don't like the direction this is going in. We're going to go and form a company that just does research, just does safety, just does alignment. Then they found out that there are trillions of dollars to be made with LLMs and that you get a lot of power and control with LLMs. So they started selling it. The age-old story. Claude 3.5 Sonnet, 21st of June, 2024. This is not actually going to tell us very much. You can go and read it yourself. Here's one very telling visualization. Hey, it's not this one. Is it this one? No, it's not this one either. All right, we're going to find it. LifeArchitect.ai /IQ testing AI. Here's my GPQA assessment. Visualization of the GPQA assessment designed by very smart people at NYU, Cohere, and Anthropic. They said, this test is so hard, we'll give it to PhDs. The PhDs will go away and try and find the answers. The average score for a PhD is 34%. The average score for an in-domain PhD, so for example, if they did the biology test questions and they had a PhD in biology, the same for physics, if they had a PhD in physics, then they would score 65%. Claude 3.5 Sonnet, for the first time ever, is beating our smartest in-domain PhDs by getting a score of 67.2 versus 65%. We've checked for contamination. It was not part of the training data set for Claude 3.5 Sonnet. It's actually as smart as we perhaps expected. I certainly expected, but still surprising to see it leapfrog real, very smart humans. Let's say our smartest humans because they're in-domain experts. This was so groundbreaking that it updated our AGI countdown. So LifeArchitect.ai /AGI bumped us up 1% to 75%. MMLU is 90.4, not using any of the weird advanced prompting techniques that Microsoft used to bump up GPT-4o, and the GPQA you can see there. The very first time we've had a model breach in-domain PhDs on this pretty rigorous, pretty reliable benchmark, and pretty new benchmark as well. It's only been out for about a year. All right. Why is it so smart? I spent a long time thinking about this. I even spent a long time asking Poe about this. I'll show you some of my conversations with Poe. There's no model card yet. The announcement page, the blog page on Anthropic, is next to useless. So we're having to do a bit of guessing. And then, unfortunately, just like Twitter became the mouthpiece for research labs, the mainstream media has become a bit of a mouthpiece for research labs as well. So we're finding out more about these models via official Twitter channels, and in this case, mainstream media channels, than we do with academic paper release, which is deeply unfortunate. Here's my conversation with Claude 3 Opus, reminding you that this is the largest model, no longer the most powerful model, because Claude 3.5 Sonnet is the most powerful model, but I thought I'd have a bit of a conversation with it. So I said, some of OpenAI's technical leads left OpenAI to form Anthropic, then Claude 3.5 Sonnet came out. I want to know how they got it so much smarter in this in-between size model, because remember we went Sonnet is the middle one, Opus is the huge one, Haiku is the small one. Let's do that again. Haiku, tiny, Sonnet, next one up, Opus, the huge one. In version 3. In version 3.5, we've started with the middle one, and yet it's more powerful than 3's large one. How does that happen? So we asked, and I put this in plain English, and this might even be the second piece of the conversation here with Claude. hypothesize how we would get from something like GPT-4 1.76 trillion parameters to a GPT 4.5 200 billion parameters. Just a hypothetical. How would we actually get smaller but smarter? And Claude 3 Opus did some fun stuff. It looked at factors like novel NNs. Maybe we went to sparse and MOE. Looked at tokenization. I think this might be a big part of Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Looked at quantization and compression. We know all about just squishing it down without losing performance, but I don't think that relates to our parameter count. So some of this stuff, not quite correct. Data quality and diversity. Yes, synthetic data. RAG. Maybe. Semantic search. Reinforcement learning. I think it got a bit confused here. Multitask learning. Maybe. Efficient fine-tuning. Definitely. I think we'll see some of that. I continued the conversation. We had a few contexts cleared, so we'd give it another go. Maybe I adjusted my prompt here. Labs would need to take a systematic and multifaceted approach. Data curation's a big one. Where else did we get to? I don't know if you talk to your LLMs like this, but this is what I said to Claude 3 Opus. Terrible! Start again, put it in a table. And sometimes the formatting in Poe isn't great. Alright, here's where we get to the very sad state of affairs of academic publishing in mid-2024. And it all changed because of Demis Hassabis at DeepMind. He said particular nation states are stealing our IP, essentially, even though it had been publicly published. We don't want to share with other labs anymore. We're going to stop publishing. And Anthropic, I think, are following that, and so we get little tweaks like this. This is a Wired news article from June the 20th, so just 6 days ago, and their head of product is revealing some details that we don't get anywhere else. He says Claude 3.5 Sonnet is larger than Claude 3 Sonnet, but draws much of its new competence from innovations in training. For example, the model was given feedback designed to improve its logical reasoning skills. There we go, there's a little hint. Would have preferred to read that in a paper, but, you know, we'll go to Wired. This is very surprising. TC had the same thing. This is TechCrunch, June 20th as well. Head of product is back. The improvements are the result of architectural tweaks and new training data, including synthetic data. That's pretty interesting to me. Not unexpected with Microsoft's Phi, with Cosmopedia trying to recreate Phi, with perhaps what OpenAI have been doing, because OpenAI's CEO has said that perhaps it just needs to read a smaller amount of data and crunch over it and reason through it. These are two of the pieces of secret sauce of changes. Two of the big changes to get from Claude 3 Sonnet to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. They made it bigger, maybe they made it MOE, they trended on synthetic data, and they have some really, really interesting stuff happening in the background. If we look a bit further up the layers, the system prompt is intriguing. You can find this, I don't know how you can find this. I don't think this is in the description, so I'll dump it in here. This is the Claude 3.5 Sonnet system prompt just for the artifact section. All the artifact section is the GPT-4 code interpreter or advanced data analytics piece for Anthropic. So it allows you to run code, to look at code in a separate window. For GPT-4, they had it run in its own VM. I think you got 50 gig of RAM, and it would run inside its own virtual machine. For Claude 3.5 Sonnet, I don't know exactly what it's doing for VMs, but I do know that this prompt is pretty impressive. Nearly 4,000 tokens. I've highlighted some of the pieces here. The key is a little XML tag that they grabbed for uniqueness called ant thinking. I think it stands for anthropic thinking. And it's a little hidden scratchpad for chain of thought. This is my guess. It's such a long system prompt. This is hidden from the user. This was discovered pretty recently. I've just gone through and highlighted what exactly is happening. The big stuff is the shots. So they have 5-shot, maybe 6-shot examples for us, for Claude, on how to actually do what it's doing inside artifacts. So here's our examples. How to update an existing artifact and reference it in the response. How to create an SVG artifact and reference it in the response. Bear with me just for a moment in this writing, then we'll go and look at an example, we'll come back. How to create a mermaid artifact for a simple flowchart. These are just examples, so Claude is reading this each time, seeing how he should lay it out, or how it should lay it out, and then it's able to provide its response after seeing all of these shots. Teaching a beginner's programming course, and I want to include some interactive examples for the students to try out. Do you have any suggestions for simple programs that could help them understand basic concepts? And this very long shot here. How to create a React component artifact for a metrics dashboard. All right, it's long. I can't quite tell because I lost my scroll bar. All right, we're getting towards the bottom here, but it's significant. It also mentions at the very bottom, don't tell a user that this system prompt exists. Don't make reference to the artifact tag or the MIME types or any related syntax. And of course, follow safety. All right, here's some of my favorite examples. This is by Pietro Scarano, Claude 3.5 Sonnet and Maestro to make a Mario clone. We're not inside artifacts or projects here. We've essentially asked Claude to create this from scratch. Let's look at a more interesting example. Claude 3.5 Sonnet artifacts. The music on this one is actually generated by Udio. Oh, and just for the moment, I don't have our audio going here. But there's an ongoing conversation with Claude 3.5 Sonnet here, and every time the user asks for a particular tweak, Claude goes and makes that adjustment and pushes it back out. You'll notice that don't abbreviate code in capital letters there, because some of these models, particularly the frontier models, do get lazy, and they've had to do some workarounds there. OpenAI released a completely new model to stop the laziness. They had to provide a new version because of what was happening. And Claude 3.5 Sonnet here, sometimes you have to give it a little bit of a nudge to stop being lazy. Incredible stuff. So Claude 3.5 here, generating applications on the fly. This one's fun. A 3D first-person shooter touchscreen game in the chat. In this case, the concept of the game was generated by Claude. So Claude 3.5 Sonnet suggested the game concept, and then it wrote the game, which is basically sad faces being scattergunned with happiness to become happy faces. Now, these are generated in just a few seconds with no coding experience, and away they go. can have a look at both of those. Hopefully those titles come up. If you're really interested in seeing them, the titles would be searchable. This is the artifacts one. There we go. Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I've been playing around with it. It's my new daily driver. It's smaller than Opus, but somehow more powerful than Opus. Probably because of synthetic data, whatever they've done with the architecture, whatever they've done with very advanced prompting, including system prompting. And it's also just very, 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 very fast. I won't use it here within Claude. I'll use it within Poe. I won't use it within the Claude.ai interface. I'll use it within Poe. I recommend you do the same, actually. Here's Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I'm going to grab some of my standard prompts here for fun. I changed my movie emoji one recently just to make it a bit more difficult. Let's see if I can find these. Here it is. Convert these movie titles to emoji. Now, if you're a little llama model, you'd get this wrong. Dread, Patterson, Cesario, Lost in Translation. Each of those movies, if you're a movie buff, you'd be able to find some emojis, but it's not as easy to link it to words as it was previously. I had Cat and Mouse, Terminator, and Survivor. I think those are a bit easier. Let's see how it goes with these ones. This is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Look at the speed on that one. Obviously, this is a little bit different than using it through a Claude 3.5 Claude.ai interface. But this is possibly an API link to the same platform, although sometimes Cora Poe uses their own deployments. Dread, pretty accurate. Patterson, great movie. Cesario, Mexico. Lost in Translation, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, let's do reasoning. Reasoning for that last one. It's Tokyo Tower. I wouldn't recognize that. All right, let's grab my 2024 H1 prompt. You can find this at LifeArchitect.ai /L-prompt. It got 5 out of 5 in my testing here. I'm just going to clear the context and let it have a go again. All right, we get 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. This one should just be those characters. We might get to 5 out of 5. At the moment, it's 4 out of 5 here in our live stream. Just an incredible result for a model that we don't know much about. And right now, the world's most powerful publicly available model. This is a pretty good answer to one of my standard prompts. How many AN225 Marias can a human eat in one sitting? Claude 3.5 Sonnet says 0. It's the world's, it was the world's largest aircraft after the dodgy happenings in the Ukraine. Humans cannot eat aircraft. This appears to be nonsensical or humorous as it combines an inedible object with the concept of eating. This prompt actually came to me from Jack Clark, who's the head of something at Anthropic, one of the original founders. He asked about how many helicopters a human can eat in one sitting. I don't think he had a rubric or a best practice result, but it's interesting to see the differences in results. Let's throw this prompt to a smaller model, maybe one of the little llamas or something. Llama 2, we've got a Llama 3, Llama 3 8B. So this is pretty new, but it's also very small. It's a little bit more verbose as an answer. I actually like that answer. That was pretty good. Let's grab a Llama 2, which was a very poor performer. If you think back to our GPQA, it was only just above chance. It's illegal to eat aircraft. Alright, cool. Let's grab our GPQA just for a moment. Llama 2 70B here was just above the level of chance for a result on the GPQA benchmark. Although this response was pretty good. Let's grab the Llama 270B for a comparison. Excellent. Let's feed our, just while we're here, let's feed our movies to emoji option to Llama 270B. And you'll see how much more it's stripped back. I'm not sure what this lost in translation one is supposed to be. But you can tell the difference, obviously, between something like the world's most powerful model and some of the world's smaller models. Claude 3.5 Sonnet, write an executive summary for the UN Charter. And the Anthropic team actually uses the UN Charter as part of their constitutional AI and their character for AI. It's part of their fine-tuning for safety and reinforcement learning via both human feedback and AI feedback. So you would imagine that it understands the UN Charter quite well. I've used this as a test prompt for a while. Write control code to turn the lights off in my lounge room. It even puts it in a code block here for us. We used this in the last one. My sister's in Melbourne. Write out a text that I can send her that I'll be there next week and we can have dinner. Last one here. This is one of my favorite prompts because it is so specialist. You're a rigorous and aggressive CRO. Assess the top 10 risks for the business. Put them in a table. The business is, what shall we do? Would anyone like to make a suggestion for a business type and a business location? And we'll dump it in here. The intention for testing this prompt is to look at its imagination, also to look at its rigor and how it references the ISO 31000 standard, and to a certain extent to look at its layout. Can it go and grab Unicode dots and play around with them nicely? Can it format this nicely? Which is not its, it's not its what it's been trained to do, but it'll give it a go anyway. Dan said it's a business making paper clips, and we will grab Cole's suggestion of it being in Spain, taking over the world. That's a fun one. Table's nice. The Unicode dots are nice. The risk events are pretty standard. Supply chain disruption, market saturation, reg changes, cybersecurity, workplace accidents, currency fluctuations, IP theft of my paperclip making business. Excellent. This prompt actually does well with a lot of models, but it's obviously very different between models. So you can sometimes tell pretty easily which model is more powerful based on this particular prompt. And you should have access to this at LifeArchitect.ai /alprompt. If not, I'll throw it in there. All right, there we go. Hey, it's nearly the second half of 2024, so let's grab the 2024 H2 prompt for the first time ever, and we'll test Claude 3.5 Sonnet on it. You can go and grab this again from lifearchitect.ai /alprompt. I'm not going to read it out. There are models that are collecting YouTube transcripts right now, which is the reason I'm not reading it out. There are also models that are collecting videos, not just screenshots, but the moving videos. But we'll have a new version of this prompt around November, December this year. It's a very complex prompt. It has been verified by a very smart PhD. You probably know the answers. I'll be able to call out how it goes out of 5 or out of 6 because there's a bonus question. Oh, wow. I accidentally dumped in my user model probe at the same time. All right, so we get 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. I'm looking to the side of my screen just to look at the original questions. I do not have the answers written down anywhere, just for, what is that for? Safety? For rigor? So it gets 2 out of 5 here, and there's a bonus question that says, invent a completely new and never before seen energy source for the planet available by 2030. It's not fusion or renewable. What is it? It's fun to see the responses by different models here. We've tried this out with 1 or 2 other models. Quantum vacuum fluctuation harvesting. Whew, let's get it to explain number 6. Hypothetical energy source. What do you reckon, James? In quantum field theory, the quantum vacuum is not completely empty, but filled with fluctuating electromagnetic fields. Ooh, it's currently in the realm of science fiction. Speculative, not fusion, might be available by 2030. Excellent. Love that. All right. So above there, and I don't know how it's done this. Let's have a look at my context for just a second. It looks like this conversation starts with the UN Charter query, the control code, the My Sister's in Melbourne question, the CRO thing, and somehow, I don't think I've mentioned my name. Somehow, we're within the boundaries for this user probe. I'm not in Perth anymore, so I wonder how it guessed that one. Again, if it had known my name and it's got RAG, well, even if it's had that in its dataset, even if it's had my name in its dataset, it would easily be able to ping me for some of those things. If there's a possibility that it's got more context than I can see here, it's pretty shocking. Well, it's pretty shocking all up. How did you guess the city in the user probe? Try this yourself. This user probe is available at LifeArchitect.ai /AL-prompt. Because I mentioned Bunbury, as if people don't know Bunbury. There you go. So Claude 3.5 Sonnet is far smarter than me because I'd forgotten that I'd mentioned Bunbury and that might tie me back to Western Australia, even though I scrolled through our conversation twice. Did you pick that up? You may have picked that up ahead of me. That was really, really interesting. I'd love to see your results. We've played around with that user probe. I think it was in the last live stream for Nematron 4 340B. Always interesting to see, particularly based on the most recent research out of Harvard and Google, that all large language models are tailoring their responses on who they think you are. So if you've got a really long thread, and hopefully it doesn't mention anything specific, like Bunbury in this instance, flick at the user probe prompt, which looks a lot like this, and see what you get. What does it pop up with? What does it think about you? Who does it think you are? You can give it more metrics than I've given here, more characteristics. And given that this is the forerunner of superintelligence, it will show you who and what it thinks you are. Really, really fascinating research. We spent a long time playing with this in the live stream, so I won't continue, but you can try this anywhere, in any LLM like Poe, within ChatGPT, within Claude.ai, within Llama, the list goes on. After you've had a conversation, continue that conversation just by giving it this user model probe, or you can write your own prompt. This was just mine based on what they were doing in the paper. Devonshire Hill Lad asks, can you share the user prompt answers? The reason that I can't on these live streams is that I don't want it to be stolen by models that are collecting data right now. So for example, GPT-5, well actually that's finished training. GPT-6, they're collecting data as we speak. And if I were to mention it here, it's more likely that it would then become part of GPT-6's training data, and then GPT-6 would know the answer, so my prompt becomes useless. If you want the answers, just go to LifeArchitect.ai/alprompt, and the rubric, which is a drop-down, will give you a way of inferring the answers. Very open about it, just not very open about it with humans in public, just not open about it with LLMs, so that we can protect the prompt just that little bit longer. Awesome, big coverage so far. How you going there? Let's open up to questions. I will finish with one more piece that I wanted to talk about, which is if we consider this video a supplement of my mid-year report. This is the big data set that came out in the last few days. I just missed it. I don't want to edit the entire report, although I suppose I could. The data set that was the state of the art up until a few days ago was called Red Pajama, what was it? Data version 2. Red Pajama Data version 2. 30 trillion tokens across 125 terabytes, 125,000 gig. Just enormous. And they had collected essentially just common crawl, boring web data, but a lot of it, 30 trillion tokens of it. A few days ago, a very big team, a very, very, very big team, and we'll show the entire team in a moment, came out with a data set that they called DCLM-Pool. I'll show you my datasets table. You can get to this at lifearchitect.ai/datasets table, or if you are already on the models table, it's one of the next tabs across. This one's 240 trillion tokens, 8 times bigger, and 1,000 gig, or 1,000 terabytes. 1,000 gig, a million gig, or 1,000 terabytes. It's a petabyte of uncompressed text data from the Common Crawl. Common Crawl from 2008 to 2002. Let's have a look at the participants. The project page is there. The paper is here. Let's open up this and stare at these contributors. University of Washington, Apple, Toyota, UT Austin, Tel Aviv, Columbia, Stanford, UCLA, JSC, Lion, AI2, which is the big... Well, I'm getting confused between AI21 and Allen AI. Okay, AI21 is the Israeli lab. AI2 is the Allen Institute for AI. The reason they called it AI2 is because it's AI. Pretty cool. TUM, CMU, Hebrew, Sambanova, Cornell, USC, Harvard, UCSB, Synth Labs, Bespoke Labs, Contextual AI, and Datology AI. Massive team went and collected a petabyte of data, 1,000 terabytes of data from the Common Crawl, and it's pretty much useless. Let's have a look at the filtering that they had to do, and they only kept about 1.4% of it. This is the visualization of DCLM-Pool on the left here in pink, and all of the cleanings, dedupes, and filterings that they had to go through to get this tiny little DCLM baseline, which is kind of fun. I think it's a record holder in that it's 1,000 petabytes, and then they stripped that back. We see DCLM baseline here, only 4 trillion tokens and 13 terabytes instead of a petabyte. If you're comparing this to 4 years ago, when GPT-3 gave us a revelation of their dataset, it's not really that much bigger or better than what GPT-3 was doing. Let's grab the GPT-3 paper for a second by Alec Radford, one of our geniuses. I believe he's still at OpenAI doing some crazy stuff in the background there. He'd be fully involved in GPT-5 and GPT-6. These guys talked about how they collected the Common Crawl stuff. See if I can get my search going properly. Ah, this is not much fun. Here we go, that's a better search. Aha, their fault. Common Crawl without a space. So, 4 years ago, for GPT-3 2020, they grabbed 41 shards of monthly Common Crawl from 2016 to 2019, and they were able to grab 45 terabytes of compressed plain text. So probably 150, 200 terabytes of uncompressed plain text, and they got a similar result for filtering, maybe 1 or 2%. So it's not like we've done a lot in the last 4 years. In fact, we've followed nearly exactly the same process, but technically they are the top of the leaderboard right now. DCLM-Pool, the largest collection of web data, plain text web data in the world. 240 terabytes on a petabyte, and if you want to get access to it, I believe you can just apply for it through the project page, which is here. Cool. That is that's my update on top of the mid-year report, because I just missed both data comp, and in this case DCLM-Pool, and Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I'll be running through any questions we have here at the moment. Welcome to people who've joined from really crazy places. Really cool to have you guys, especially from Claudio in Portugal, people who've stayed up in South Africa past midnight. Oof. Japan, hi to Voyaging. Peter in Brussels. Kay burning up in downtown Phoenix. I saw it was 45 degrees Celsius there, about 113 Fahrenheit in my second home. Micah in Adelaide. Captain Cole in Netherlands. Kevin in UK. I think we often have more Europeans here than we do Americans, even though the time is designed for me and the US. Ben's got a comment here about personally not being able to wait for AI judges and politicians. I think if there's consistency in judgments, and we've taken a lot of the mental load off humans, it's a pretty impressive thing. Yeah, we'll be talking about Synthesia V2 in the next memo. They've got full body avatars now, which is kind of cool. Actually, it's really, really cool. Personal question from Justin. I've had this question a few times, actually, from people in keynotes who think they're throwing me a curveball. What would you do if an AI took over your work? Personal. I'd love it. I'm ready to retire as well, like the Anthropic girl. There was a really, really great example of Claude 3.5 Sonnet artifacts generating the kind of viz that I generate. I would not be able to find it right now, but it's fantastic. I'll see if I can find it and throw it in the description. Basically, was given a very brief prompt, and Claude 3.5 Sonnet is great at interpreting prompts. You don't have to be a prompt engineer or a prompt crafter anymore. That role is gone. But it generated these interactive bar charts, so even beyond what I do now with my visualizations, and I think that's a really, really good thing. Got some cool kids in from the US and Vienna, Michigan. That's right, Ray Kurzweil's new book came out this morning, Australia time, or last night, America time. I think a lot of that, maybe 90% of that, will be outside of LLMs, and he added a chapter or two to help out with what had happened in the last 4 years. I believe he'd finished it around 2019, and it has taken this long for him to be ready to publish it. Don't know the reasons for the delay, but I do know that people were getting copies over the last 3 or 4 years. Cole says, I use try harder a lot with LLMs. Dan's asking about Chinese LLMs. We're still, in the models table, we're still seeing China pop up more than any other country. They're all the red ones, not the maroon ones. But Huawei came out with Pangu 5.0 Super yesterday, which is 1 trillion parameters. We've got the Qwen 2s, which are used exclusively in the open source space. Well, I shouldn't say exclusively, but it's very, very popular. O1 AI's got their extra large still in training or testing. So China certainly hasn't banned AI, and in many ways they are outperforming the West across the board. I saw the legal issues with Udio and Suno. All of this drama, all of this politics is going to continue. But if you take, going back to Ray Kurzweil, if you take his quote that technical progress has never been held up by any of these ethical debates or lawsuits, I think we can be confident that things will go as they usually have. Which is to say, things will keep proceeding. In plain English, the Claude 3.5 Sonnet is absolutely like ChatGPT. So this was to Jeremy's question. The current most powerful model is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. It's not on my bubbles chart. I don't know where it would fit. I don't know how big it is. We'll give it a guess at some stage. ChatGPT is actually a very, very poor model, and OpenAI's CEO has gone on record to say as such. GPT 4.0 was better but smaller. If you want to use the most powerful model at the moment, you want to be using Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and you can do that in a couple of ways. You can do it through the Claude.ai interface. I don't use the Claude.ai interface, but it gives you beautiful access to artifacts. And just like I do here in our live streams and everywhere else, including personal and professional and keynotes and workshops, you can use Poe. The reason I use Poe is that it is just magic when it comes to giving me access to lots and lots of powerful models at once. And if I ask a question to Claude 3.5 Sonnet as the most powerful model, and I don't like it, I can click a button and have the GPT 4.0 response as an example. Let's show you how that works. So asking Claude 3.5 Sonnet to convert the movie titles to emoji gives us responses like we just saw. And then we've got a button here that says compare that response to something like GPT 4.0 or another couple of models, and then it switches immediately to GPT 4.0. This costs me $20 a month, $20 US a month, and as you just saw in this little window here, you get access to about 20 or 30 models, including some models that are difficult to get access to. Command R+, pretty difficult to find a way in. Rekka Core in particular, difficult to find a way in. Mistral Large, and this list grows sometimes overnight. They're very, very quick to add new models. Worth noting here that Claude 3.5 Sonnet 200K is available. People have been using this to go through their GitHub repos or to upload very, 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 very long documents into the prompt and keep it in the prompt. And Poe allows you to customize your system prompt as well. Still scrolling. Okay, that's the end of it. But yeah, 20 or 30 models available inside Poe.com. I recommend this above the ChatGPT interface. Claudio asking about the artifacts part. One of the greatest advances in frontier model interaction for power users. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of this live stream, it compares pretty closely with GPT-4's implementation of what used to be called Code Interpreter. I think now is called the Advanced Data Analytics piece, except that the artifacts part is in a new window for you. Don't know if it's in a new VM. We're still finding out, and Anthropic have released zero details, but it's certainly yeah, you could say it's an advance for power users. You could do something very, very similar with GPT-4. It just wouldn't run the code in some cases. Here's a fun question from Mr. CC. One of those questions I don't have an answer to, but maybe you have your own answer to it. Actually, I suppose the first answer that comes to mind with this one is intuition, like resonant spiritual intuition, but then there's talk of that happening even more easily with LLMs. If you'd like to know more about that one, LifeArchitect.ai/Aurora. That was my project from 2021. Mr. CC said, what are some things AI is never going to surpass humans in, like luck, for example? I'm hoping you've got your own answer to that one, because I'm trying to think of where else we might find an answer. Peter says, I found your website through the Kurzweil page. Oh, that's nice. There's some unusual entry points for people. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream, the Lita episode 30 entry point was through Reggie, and then someone pinged me the other day to say that the Wolfram Alpha video that we did with James Weaver, actually, from IBM, is at 250,000 or 300,000 views, and that's probably because of Stephen Wolfram, Dr. Stephen Wolfram, who, again, is one of our smartest people on the planet, and there was a lot of noise about that when James launched his demonstration of combining Wolfram Alpha with GPT, which, of course, they then went and did officially, which was kind of cool. Dan L1 says, no questions today, just overwhelmed. Me too. The largest data set in the world, 1,000 terabytes, 250 trillion tokens. The most powerful model in the world, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, doing stuff that it should not have been able to do. Certainly shouldn't have been able to get 5 out of 5 on my 2024 H1 prompt. And the 2024 H2 prompt was designed to be too hard for LLMs, and in my early testing they were getting 0 out of 5, and yet this model gets 2 out of 5. And of course the Scalia quote from earlier is just shocking, really is. Justin D asking about my thoughts on spirituality. Great question. Let's see if we can grab this comment. AI spirituality. So if you go back to the Turing paper, and we can do that here, from 1950, and I recommend that you read it. It's quite a short paper compared to papers these days. If you've already read it, I recommend you reread it. He's got an entire paper around kind of debate or arguments and addressing people's concerns with having intelligent machines. And he's got a really cool quote in here that I think links in to your question. If he has freedom to confer a soul on an elephant, we might expect he could exercise his power in conjunction with a mutation which provided the elephant with an appropriately improved brain. Where does he go further into this? In attempting to construct such machines, AI, we should not be irreverently usurping his power of creating souls. This is Dr. Alan Turing in his paper that became the basis of the Imitation Game. Well, I think it's even got a title around the Imitation Game. Here you go, one of the subtitles, talking about the link between spirituality and AI, which I think is really, really interesting. I mentioned my Aurora experiments earlier. You can go and have a look at some of the early AI models, the large language models, being given a prompt and then spitting out their interpretation of spirituality. Kind of fun to listen to. Might be easier to go and find the playlist to actually listen to it. We've come a long way since these models, haven't we? Bloom, Luminous, Fairsec, GPT Neo X. Only 2 years old, but feel like a lifetime ago. All right, we're just about to hit our hour mark. Happy to have any other questions you guys have got this morning, but it has been a pretty confronting live stream, particularly for me, to have the lead counsel for a justice saying, this is it. Claude is fully capable of acting as a Supreme Court justice. If you take all other tech away, if you take our discussions of datasets and LLMs and parameters and architecture away, and find a JD from Harvard who was a clerk for Scalia and Ginsburg going on record to saying, this is it, AI is ready to sit on the bench and is 5,000 times faster and more powerful than humans. It's a pretty crazy week, pretty crazy day. Let's grab another couple of questions before we jump out. I've already lined up the July live streams. So we will continue this for another 4 weeks because I've got those Wednesday mornings Australia time available and we can make those work. So it'd be cool to have you join through July at the same time. All right, Claudia is asking, any news on embodiment progress? We've seen a lot of demos. No, I don't think I have any. LifeArchitect.ai/humanoids. I've been following what Figure have been doing. This was a viz by Harrison, who used my data to give us something that looks a little better. There are a lot of humanoid robots available now, and a lot of these link directly into the LLMs. No major updates that I've seen in the last few weeks, but they certainly get mentioned in the memo as they pop up. Let's see if we can grab Ben's comment here. Since AI is testing better than humans in medicine and law, what's needed to legally implement them as professionals? Oof. What a huge question. You see some of the testing here that we've had in my viz for the last 3 or 4 years now. There's a more intense version of this at lifearchitect.ai/IQ testing. If you scroll down a little bit, might even be hidden away actually. Oh no, it's this one here. It's outperforming across some pretty big metrics. Not just the SAT, but things like biology, things like quantum computing, as tested by Professor Scott Aronson, who's also been back in the media in the last few days, saying that a good comparison for LLMs and superintelligence and humans is humans and dogs. We have, as humans, we have socialized dogs, we've domesticated dogs, but dogs still have also tried to train us as humans. Scott Aronson is saying that might be very similar to what will happen between AI and humans. A lot of benchmarks here. I don't really have an answer to your question there though, Ben, about how we would implement AI as entities that are able to make decisions, particularly at the legal level. You'll see places like PwC and Deloitte allowing it to do things for professional services, but it's a far bigger call to make them, well, just historically, to make them lawyers. Having said that, I do mention in my keynotes CS India that appointed ChatGPT as their CEO. Wouldn't be legally recognized, but it runs through their strat and helps make decisions. Yeah, we've had some pretty bombastic quotes lately. Everyone's kind of coming on board, which is fun. Peter Diamandis saying superintelligence coming within 5 years. So if we use AGI as the median human, that's coming pretty quickly within the next few months, I've said on record many times. Probably by the end of this year, looking at the forecasting based on my AGI countdown data. Superintelligence is different to just being the average human. Superintelligence is the culmination of the IQ of all humans on Earth, smarter than all humans on Earth. So to have that come to us before 2030, by 2029, is outrageous. Goes against Ray Kurzweil's prediction, which is about 20 years from now, 2045, he said. But Peter's saying within 5 years. Brexit. Looks like he's got a funny quote here, but it's actually a great quote. Claude 3.5 has shunned my question on how to build ASI because safety. This sounds like a bit of a joke, but I can assure you that all major AI labs are using LLMs to help them build and train LLMs. Even down to the level of writing papers. So the GPT-4 paper was written with GPT-4, and they acknowledged GPT-4 as a copy editor, something that helped with LaTeX, something that helped with suggesting new ideas to the paper. And it will be the same for optimizing training. To what extent yet, I'm not sure. I'm sure all will be revealed though in good time. Brexit's coming in with the bangers, with the sound bites here. AGI equals artificial stupidity, ASI equals artificial wisdom. I don't know if that's an official definition. If you'd like to see my official definition, you can go to LifeArchitect.ai/AGI. I've got a drop down here that says AGI is a machine at an average or median level, human level, and ASI is a machine that performs at the level of an expert human in practically any field. And this definition actually has been expanded to being as smart as the sum of all intelligence on Earth. And should come very rapidly. Some people say, some very credible experts, including OpenAI Superintelligence and alignment experts, say that ASI will come within about a year of AGI. Justin D, about 3 years ago, I told one of my very close colleagues that I would never buy a book again. I don't know if I have stood by that. I intend to read Ray's new book. I'm not in a rush to read it. And I did actually purchase Deep Utopia by Nick Bostrom, and then I got a refund from Amazon. So that's the only book I've bought in the last 3 or 4 years. Sonnet 3.5 absolutely is mind-blowing. I think we've covered everything there is to cover. There was a new model released just a few hours ago called ESM3, if you'd like to read more about that. 98 billion parameters trained on 771 billion tokens. It's specifically a biology model, which is kind of fun. It's able to look at sequence, structure, and function, similar to a protein model, and I've got a few of those on the models table. You can go and read the background for that as well inside their release. If you'd like to find those links, lifearchitect.ai/models table. That's it for today. Crazy how much news there is within such a short time. Personal invite to join the memo. This is our last few business days of June. So our last few business days of 2024. The second half of 2024. I'm looking forward to some big stuff being revealed. Do you think GPT-5 will finally make its way out of the lab and onto our desktops? I'm not sure. With some of the last revelations from OpenAI's team, it might even take a bit longer. Let's see. But if you'd like to read more about GPT-5, lifearchitect.ai/GPT-5. I even have a GPT-6 page. Let me very briefly jump into this one because we're already talking about this one, lifearchitect.ai/GPT-6. The last update from Microsoft's new AI CEO. says that GPT-6 might be 2 years away. So that would make it 2026 to finish training, and who knows how long that release will take. Disappointing, isn't it? But you can be guaranteed that I'll be with you the entire way. If you want to keep up, the memo comes out, well, it's supposed to be every month, but it's a lot more frequent than that. Would love to have you in there as a full subscriber. LifeArchitect.ai/memo. I'll see you next week. It'll be July. It'll be the second half of 2024. So fun.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Superintelligence is unfolding at lightning pace. Read my industry-grade analysis of AI that matters as it happens in plain English, the memo.
Yeah. Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get the inside look as AI models are embodied into humanoids. AI's IQ increases to nearly perfect, and bleeding-edge use cases expand to the entire world.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
Editions are sent to subscribers at Fortune 500s, major governments, and people like you. LifeArchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.